Let's get into the newspapers. Joining us this morning, we've got Dawn Neeson and we've got Fraser Myers. So we say good morning to both of those. Dawn, we go to you, front page of the Telegraph. And this dependence on China, says Kemi Badenoch. Why do we need China?
Well, it's a weird way the Telegraph done this. Obviously, it's following on from the weekend story about the alleged spy, who works as a researcher in Westminster. But the Telegraph have given it the net zero spin, and I'm not quite sure if it works or not. But in any case, the story they've done is basically we cannot afford to cut ties with China, even though they may or may not have spies in Westminster, because we need them to reach net zero. OK, we need them to reach net zero in this country while China are completely ignoring reaching net zero, as they are literally building coal-fired power stations as we speak. But the premise here, basically, is Kemi Badenoch speaking out and saying, basically, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. So it's a complete reverse ferret on what Liz Truss did. We'll remember Liz Truss in her 49 days in office, where she said China were basically the spawn of Satan, we shouldn't trust them. Now the theory is that we do need China, we need to talk to them, we need to be communicating with them.
Well, that's not the American approach to things. America is calling them out, are not reliant on them, and they're moving things like Apple factories and whatever into India and taking them.
Yes, no, absolutely. The problem is, and this is mentioned somewhere, and there's thousands of words in this particular story, is that try to find anything, certainly a battery that isn't made in China. So you can move the main factory, but most of the components, whether it's Apple or not, Apple batteries are made in China. So there is going to always be this reliance. We cannot ignore, and I sort of agree with this, we can't ignore China. And I personally would rather know what my enemies are up to rather than cut them out.
But do you not think that we're all getting our knickers in a twist about the semantics, the words that we're using to describe them? Why haven't we hauled in the ambassador to have a word about this? Why aren't we talking about possible sanctions for putting spies in our seat of democracy? Why are we absolutely obsessed with whether we use the word a threat or an epoch-defining challenge? It's ridiculous.
Well, these are the kind of things politicians get exercised about, I guess. They will spend, forever compiling new reports on exactly what words to use. But I think the general gist of it is true. You know, we do... China is now such a vital part of the world economy. You know, cutting ties with them, it's not just about net zero. I mean, imagine, you know, what that would do to people's living standards. We rely fundamentally on cheap goods that have their origins in China. And that's not necessarily...
You know, Fraser, the only thing I'm going to say about this, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if we were sitting talking about Saudi Arabia, I would have contributors preaching to us about we can't possibly have links with a country as immoral as that and a country that does this behind your back and that. Suddenly you want to make Saudi Arabia taboo, but everybody's cool with China. Why? Because they're all frightened of China. They're our third biggest trading partner, and we're their, 75th biggest trading partner. We need them, they don't need us.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's a, realpolitik element to this. But, somewhere like Saudi Arabia, the fact is we do business with unsavoury regimes. That's a fact of life. Politicians might like to sort of preen about not wanting to, but I don't see that ending anytime soon. That's a sad reality.
I think politicians are a bit short-sighted. You know, why say something about we need them to be able to hit our net zero targets, which is not always that popular an angle? Why not say we need to keep talking to them because they're talking to Russia? Or, we're helping to maintain peace in Europe by talking to China. That might wash a bit better with the British public.
That's why I think this is a weird take on it, Isabel, linking it into net zero, which in this country isn't a popular thing in any case, when there's so much more going on than the net zero link here.
OK, this is a really disturbing story, Fraser. This is a front page of the Times today. Nearly a third of female surgeons within the NHS have been sexually assaulted. It makes a headline, front page.
So this comes off the back of a very large survey carried out by the GMC or sponsored by the GMC. A huge amount of reports of sexism, ranging from what might seem like the smaller incidents to the most incredibly serious. So it looks as if there's kind of a toxic culture within surgery. I should say, I think that the headline perhaps overstates the case. It's talking about things like sexual banter and things like that are a lot of what feeds into this.
They're also talking about 11 rapes.
that's absolutely, those things are unacceptable in the workplace, and it's completely or it's totally, totally unprofessional and wrong. But I think the headline implies a level of sort of criminal activity that is perhaps not there in the actual figures, but still a very serious problem.
Is this the same survey, Fraser, that's saying that so many more new doctors are just simply to go abroad for better pay and better conditions?
That's a different survey in a different paper, but that is also clearly a problem. Many people who graduate in the UK, they see the NHS, they see the amount of work they have to do, they see the relatively low pay, and they think, well, why not go to Australia? Why not go to
the thing is
US?
with this story, it's a story in The Guardian, it's front page of The Guardian, and it's typical Guardian fare, and it's NHS in crisis part. God knows what we're up to. I feel, as a journalist on national newspapers for nearly 40 years, I feel I've been writing NHS in crisis stories for almost all of that time. But this is our 60% of those trainee young medics who are training at the cost of the NHS. The average age of 20, they're not satisfied, not at all satisfied with the prospect of working for the NHS. Well, the immediate question is, why are you going into it in the first place? You've just started your training. You're saying, I'm not satisfied. Well, don't go into it in the first place. You know what the NHS is like.
You're young, you're idealistic, you want to change the world, you want to do good, and then you're faced with people who know the price of everything and the value of nothing.
No, I agree with that, and I agree it needs reforming, but this is the very start of it, and we are paying to train these people who have no intention
Well, I
of
think
staying.
that's an issue. I think if we are paying for these people to go through medical school, they should do a certain amount of service for the NHS, because so many of these wonderful, talented, British-trained, best kind of medical training you can get anywhere, are going off to places like Australia and never paying back that loan.
Exactly.
And then the Australians get the benefit of that wonderful training, and it's a huge loss for us.
But if they were indentured, they had to sign a contract and say, we have to work for the NHS for 7 years, I don't see why that isn't norm.
I think we're all agreed on that. I think they should do, because to go through all this training and starting off with that attitude, well, NHS is a bit rubbish, I don't want to work for it, and then I'm going to Australia as soon as I finish my training, well, I'm sorry.
See, I always thought I would like to have been a doctor.
I'd have loved to have been a doctor too.
But I'm not smart enough. I never thought I was smart enough, really, to do it. And I realise now, funny enough, because I've got so many, I get so many consultations with so many people about what's wrong with me. And you know what? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
They know, and it's not joined up.
Well, actually, there's a story, maybe we can find it later on for one of the later paper reviews, about a woman who had a problem with her child, and she went to some ridiculous number of appointments, like 35 different experts, and nobody could do it. And then she went to ChatGPT, AI, typed in all the different diagnoses, and the bloomin' AI came up with the diagnosis. So maybe you should try that, Eamonn.
That's scary. No, don't ever Google what's wrong with you.
No, ChatGPT
really not a good idea.
is a better doctor than Dr. Google. He's a consultant of Dr. Google.
I've just now got a mental image of Dr. Eamonn looming over me, and so
I think I'd be very good.
He'd have a lovely bedside manner.
I think it all went wrong when they took the white coats away. I actually think a white coat and a stethoscope, would be... I think you need to look authoritative. I genuinely do. I think it's ridiculous that people come in and they wear a bin liner.
I think nurses should still wear hats. I thought that was a lovely look.
Oh, matrons.
So fetching.
Don't start.
Would you wear a hat in a chip shop and things? Why wouldn't you? Well, when you're opening up someone's stomach...
Dinner lady wears one.
Yes.
I always find it funny when you see doctors or surgeons being interviewed on television. They always have to have their stethoscope on them.
Yeah.
I think everyone else just has their job title below. In their scrubs, yeah.
Which is clearly really unhygienic. Why are you wearing your scrubs in a television studio?
Even if they're being interviewed on a Sunday morning at home and it's a day off, they're wearing their full scrubs with a stethoscope. I'm a doctor.
No, I think worse is politicians that walk into hospital wards with their sleeves rolled up.
They have to do that, apparently, and they have to tuck their tie inside their shirt.
You don't have to do that when you visit a hospital.
But we don't go up to patients and things in the way that they do. But
well, I do. I go into hospital, people immediately. I'm like healing the bedridden.
Well, you're a super spreader.
People want to be touched by me and they think they're going to be healed.
Yeah, and you're killing them.
Did I ever tell you the story
Grim Reaper.
Did I ever tell you the story about Ruth having Jack in the hospital?
Oh, yeah. And you were chatting up the nurses.
I wasn't chatting. There was a queue outside for people to meet me. And then she went ballistic and she went... But anyway, I was just seeing the afflicted. Are we going to the break?
I don't know. Oh.
Yes, we are going to a break.
On that
And then-
cheery note.
On that cheery note of
What are we
Dr.
going to be
Eamonn.
doing after that
We're
break?
going to be talking to the government about the online safety bill, which is actually really interesting. They've got a whole bunch of razzmatazz showbiz celebrities heading to Downing Street today. But we'll be getting into the serious elements of the law as well after this.